Welcome to the DFS Build MLB edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We're going to go over this massive MLB slate for Friday, May 3rd. Should be fun and not at all horrible later tonight when everything we say goes wrong, right? Well, baseball is baseball, but we're going to do the best we can to look at it logically and point you in the right direction to help you in your build process. Another way to help your build process is to use a good lineup optimizer. And DFS Hero is just that. You can see the projections on the screen here, but you can try it out yourself for a 15% discount if you hit the link in the video description below. All right, Taylor, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump to the first game of the night. We got the Tigers against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. Is it Yankee Stadium?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't.
Sure is.
When I was looking at stuff earlier, for some reason, I saw it was in Detroit. So that was incorrect information on that part. So obviously, Detroit gets a significant jump up in park factor. The Yankees should have some fun at home facing Reese Olson. And then you have Marcus Stroman going up against the Tigers. For me, I think the Yankees are totally fine. Reese Olson's been pretty decent this year, but he's definitely not somebody I'm afraid of. So I think a Yankee stack is totally viable, especially the lefties. On the other side, I'm not super interested in targeting Stroman, but I'm also not excited to pay 8.8K for a guy who just doesn't miss bats. So if he ends up being chalky, I wouldn't mind actually going after Tigers in this stadium. But for the most part, I would just be looking at Yankees here. How about you?
I'm mostly on Stroman. I don't feel great about it either, but as the Tigers, it's still kind of a neutral park overall. The power for lefties is obviously a thing, but otherwise it's kind of spacious. I'm not really scared of Detroit's power. Stroman for 8.8, I think it's okay. There's not like a super obvious SP1 that we have to have, in my opinion, tonight. So I'll get to Stroman a bit. I have him around 19% right now, which is pretty high. It's a little under his projected ownership that I'm looking at. Yankees and Tiger bats not really on my radar. That also been fun, but not a good matchup, and he's not a punt price, so probably not looking his way.
Yeah, worth noting that it's not expected to be super warm there, and the wind is blowing in at 9 miles per hour, so that could help your Stroman play for sure. On to the next one we go. We got Angels and Guardians in Cleveland. Tanner Bibby looks pretty good on the mound here against the Halos, who don't have Mike Trout, and they obviously tend to strike out a bit. Let's actually check out their strikeout numbers just to be sure. And they're coming in at 24%, so that looks pretty good for him. I like Bibby at 8.5K, but I do think since he's going to be very, very chalky, right now he's coming in at 28% ownership, a nice little sprinkling of Angel stacks does make sense. They do have a lot of power even without Trout. They might strike out a bit, which, by the way, Trout actually struck out a lot. So him coming out of the lineup helps their strikeout numbers, oddly enough. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind the Halos as a leverage play, but for the most part in this game, I do like Bibby. I think the Guardians are actually a kind of under the radar stack up against Soriano here. But yeah, how are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, Bibby's my highest owned player on the slate right now at like 22%. He's cheap. Like you said, lineup's not very imposing with Trout not in it. I don't really see anything wrong with getting to him tonight. Like I said, no clear-cut SP1. Might as well pay down a little bit. I don't really care about his ownership. I'm more inclined to eat pitching ownership anyway. As far as the Angels, I don't really see the need. Like, I know that he'll be popular, Bibby, but that lineup's just really bad. A lot of strikeouts in it. Not dying to get there. I do think Cleveland looks good as a high-contact lineup with a lot of lefties against Soriano. Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8 lefties in the projected lineup. The only righty in there is Tyler Freeman. So not a good spot for Soriano at all. And they're largely cheap beyond Ramirez and Josh Naylor. So yeah, it's not like a core stack for me, but I do think the Guardians look decent enough.
Yeah, good point on the lefty thing, because, I mean, they're coming in at 4.49% at DFS Hero for stack ownership, which is like very much middle of the pack tonight. So I don't think they're like a top 5 stack by any means, but they are They are facing a pitcher that's pretty beatable, and the splits favor them greatly. So I think they are a little bit interesting. All right, we got Rangers and Royals. Michael Lorenzen and Brady Singer taking on each other here. I'm not super interested in either side. If I were to pick a side, I guess I'd go Lorenzen. I mean, Rangers are just going to be unowned here against Singer, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not like super in love with this game, but I think Texas would be the way I would lean.
As of now, they're my highest owned stack on the whole slate. Don't feel great about it, but Singer is not super imposing. He's also overpriced, so I don't think he's really going to get played, but lefties in particular have been pretty good against him over the years. Texas has a few they can throw his way. Obviously, Seager, Carter, Lowe at the top of the lineup. Yeah, I just kind of like the way they set up against him here. Not really getting to either Lorenzen or Singer, however.
Yeah, I don't really want to play either of the pitchers. I think like there's no like clear leverage with Texas because I don't think at 9.1K Singer is going to get a lot of ownership, but it's still a very good offense that doesn't figure to be very owned. If you look at the stack percentage there for them, they're what? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ones. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to be that owned. So
there's no like clear cut number one offense either. Like it's going to be pretty spread out. So I don't mind looking
earlier in the day, it looked to be the Braves, but they've actually dropped down to third now. So yeah, I agree. It seems to be quite split up top. So yeah, I mean, if the Rangers are not going to be like super owned, and I would imagine that goes down even more because people are going to fear Singer to some degree. But I don't really think the Texas should. So, yeah, I'm with you. All right, Mariners and Astros. You got George Kirby and then Ronald Blanco. That makes more sense. You never know. Baseball names are tricky sometimes, actually. Both pitchers have been pretty good on the year. Blanco especially has been crushing with a 1.65 ERA. 3-0, we know that means nothing, but he's actually been just slicing teams up. He hasn't given up more than 2 runs in a game. George Kirby has been fine, and last game he's been pretty darn good. He had 2 bad outings. Every other game he had 21 plus fantasy points, and last time he had 12 Ks with 42 fantasy points. So I know the Astros have a lot of power, but at 7.8, I actually have a little bit of interest in Kirby. Just based off of talent, I think he's pretty good for tourneys. He's not going to carry much ownership at 10%, and I'm not afraid of Blanco either. I know the Mariners were popping a little bit when I've been running the system. Let's look at their splits here. Mariners were coming in with a 27% K rate. I mean, he does have issues against the left side of the plate, but they're kind of righty heavy, so I don't really see why the Mariners are that appealing. So to me, this is more of a pitching spot, and I like both pitchers a good amount.
I think it's just because long-term he has bad numbers, and so far this season he's been good, but underlying stuff makes it look a little bit fluky. He is throwing a change more often than he ever has before, and maybe that's helping him out quite a bit. I'm inclined to think Seattle is the way to go there, but I don't want to be super dug in. I am getting to them, but I might temper that a bit just because I think projections might be underrating this version of Blanco.
Okay, but they are coming in as the top stack right now. So if you do want,
I mean, like I said, like I just think the projections aren't really caught up with Blanco's 2024.
Right.
So they think he's probably still a gas can, which he hasn't really been. I don't know if he's an ace either, so I don't mind looking their way, but I don't want to be very invested either.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he isn't a gas can. It doesn't mean he can't be gotten to. I mean, they have good power and everything. I'm going to side with the pitching, I think, on this one. And the fact that the Mariners are chalky on a big slate, 9 games, that's even more reason for me to just kind of be underweight or just get away from them a little bit. Because there's a lot of offenses that I actually like tonight. So are you interested in Houston? Are you interested in George Kirby at all?
Kirby's cheap and he looks okay for the dollar, but pretty low strikeout pitcher, pretty low strikeout matchup. So I'm not really sure what kind of ceiling he offers you here. I'm also not dying to get to Houston against him, of course, just because he's good and there are worse pitchers you can target on this slate. You can always make a case for like Alvarez, and Low Perfido's cheap. Trey Cabbage is 2K flat. It's okay, but likely just kind of a YOLO, lower owned dart thrower type thing.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I do like both pitchers a decent amount. Not necessarily my top guys on the slate, but they're not too bad. All right, we have Tanner Houck again and Chris Paddock facing off with the Red Sox and Twins going to war here. This is a solid hitter's park. The wind is blowing out to left. I think both stacks look pretty good here. I think they might actually be a little bit chalky too. Let's see where we're at. Not really, actually. Boston may be coming in as like a top 10 stack as far as ownership goes, and for good reason. Chris Paddock had a really good outing last time out, but he has not really been like this ace guy that we thought he would be. Well, actually, that's not true. Last time out, he got shelled a little bit for 4 earned runs. The previous game, he had 36 fantasy points, and the game before that, he had -10. So overall, he's not been good this year, but he had that one electric outing against the White Sox, no doubt. Let me double check. I'm sure it was. I'm sure, of course, it was. That's like fucking everybody. Yep. So that doesn't tell us anything. Odds are he probably just sucks. And in this park against an offense that does have some power, I would side with the Boston side. The only thing is he is cheap, so I see why people would have a little bit of interest. He's coming in with 15% ownership. I probably side with the Houck side if I'm going to have a pitcher in this game, just because the Twins do whip at a 24% clip, but I guess so does Boston. But anyways, based on the pitching and the park, I like the stacks more than the pitchers here. And if I had to choose a pitcher here, I'd go with Houck.
Yeah, I mean, Houck is like 2K more, so that is worth noting. I am getting to more of him, though. Just kind of one of those underpriced guys, pretty decent K stuff. Minnesota not striking out as much as they were, but still not a bad matchup. Paddock, yeah, just kind of because he's 6'3", I can see it, and Boston's lineup is pretty bad. Dom Smith, Vaughn Grissom, Garrett Cooper in there. Connor Wong. It's just not a very imposing group either. So I kind of see both sides. Like, obviously Paddock is not an ace and he's fully capable of giving it up, as we've seen on countless occasions over the last few years. So it's kind of a play any side you want type of thing. I think you can make a case for all 4 sides of this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a few things that stand out for sure. Like for Paddock, 11% K rate against lefties so far this year. That's pretty damning. I mean, that could be a problem. I know they have a watered down lineup, but they are pretty strong from the left side at the moment. Well, I guess it's pretty top heavy with Devers and Duran, but still. On the Twins side, Houck's 2024 numbers look pretty damn good, but last year he had major issues, 232 ISO against lefties, and the Twins have a ton of lefties who hit for power. So, yeah, it's like, do you want to chase the Ks with Houck and pay that like 8.1K salary, or do you want to take a chance on a suddenly unowned Twins stack in a pretty good park with favorable splits, at least historically so yeah, I do have interest in them for sure. Let's see, next one we got White Sox and the Cardinals. Sonny Gray looks awesome up top against the White Sox, and you know they're giving up elite pitching performances left and right. I don't even personally want to bother with White Sox leverage stacks here. Sonny is coming in with 26% ownership, but as he should. He looks like the safest pitcher on the board, and he has a really good ceiling here. Let's see, who's pitching for the White Sox? Keller. So the Cardinals look good on the other side too. I mean, the Cardinals seem to be that offense that only goes off when you absolutely aren't considering them at all. But they do have a 4.81 implied run total. So Cardinals stacks look good. Sonny Gray looks good, and I don't have much of any interest on the White Sox side.
No, Gray's definitely the number 1 overall guy if you can pay for him. He's 10-1, so it's not a discount, but good spot, good park, and all that. Cardinals look overowned to me. Like, you know, it's not a very good offense. They're not really that cheap, all things considered. Park, not really good either, like I said. who knows about Keller? Like, he could be a gas can. He could be kind of the pesky ground ball guy that he used to be with KC. So hard to know what to do. I'm a little nervous about being under on, but probably won't even be up to where the field is. The Cardinals. I'll just look at where primary build around stack today.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I said, the Cardinals are not a very trustworthy offense. They feel very Blue Jays-y to me. Like every time they're in a smash spot, they go and score 1 or 2 runs. It's just what they do. So, yeah, if they're going to be chalky, I don't mind being underweight at all. Just because there's a lot of interesting stacks on this slate that I feel good about, so I don't have to go and eat chalky Cardinals or Mariners offense. All right, next game we have the Padres and Diamondbacks in Arizona. We have Dylan Cease looking like a pretty viable option against Arizona. The D-backs only strike out a 21% clip against righties, though, so it's not really the greatest spot to pay 9.3K for him. I'm getting to some of him for sure, just because I love his strikeout upside. But if he's going to be super owned, I actually don't hate the idea of some Arizona leverage stacks, just because he does have a little bit of issues with the left side of the plate, specifically with walks. 13.8% walk rate against lefties in 2024. Small sample size. That doesn't sound good, especially against a pretty patient offense that doesn't strike out that much. Not super into the Padres, although in theory you could pick on Ciccone here for sure if you wanted to. But he is a young pitcher, top 10 prospect for them. So I kind of would rather just save with him with 6.6K as opposed to stacking Padres. What are you thinking?
I think the Pods are my favorite stack on the whole slate. Pretty good mix.
I'm going to win some money tonight.
Good mix of pricey and cheap hitters, plenty of lefties to throw us away. I mean, it is a park upgrade too for them, so I do think they're pretty viable. As far as Cease, I'll be under on him. It's just a low strikeout, high walk offense, and strikeouts are good for him, but the walks are not good, so I can see how things would go wrong for him. The issue is stacking Arizona, like the lefties. They only have McCarthy, Peterson, and Carroll in the projected lineup. Carroll's been awful, still expensive, injured. Peterson and McCarthy, yeah, fine. Like McCarthy, a cheapish leadoff guy, I don't mind, but it's kind of hard to see the stat coming together in an appealing way. Plus, it's expensive. I think I would just rather fade Cease, but not really play for the Diamondback side of it, and just kind of hope he has a mediocre showing, but also hoping the D-backs just don't go completely insane.
It's a lot of hoping over there, but that is a plenty viable strategy on a 9-game slate. When, especially if you like this punt pitcher, or you actually like the Padres side, don't you? That's right.
Yeah, I'm not into Ciccone at all. I will have 0 of him today.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like I said, when you're facing a young pitcher, you can definitely go with that stack. I think because of his price, I actually like him a little bit better than the Padres. So definitely Padres are going off now, 100%. To be fair, I'm not getting to him a lot. I just think that if between the two, he stands out a little bit more for me than they do. All right, we got the Marlins and the Athletics facing off here. Ryan Weathers, the GOAT, and JP Sears. These are two guys who technically have fairly soft matchups in a pitcher park, but they also aren't very good. And they are lefties who are very much prone to righty power. So I actually have quite a bit of interest in Athletics because they're super cheap and they actually have some righty bats who can mash lefties, specifically Nevin and Rooker and Shea Langoliers. So they look pretty good. Marlins would be okay if JP Sears ends up being super chalky. And last time I checked, he was kind of owned, 16% owned. So they're fine, but they don't really grade out very well. How are you feeling about these guys?
Yeah, it's a bad park for the hitters, and they're two bad offenses. So this game could easily be 1-0, but it could also be 9-8 because the pitchers are also bad.
Yeah.
So I think this is another one where you can kind of play both sides. The issue for Sears is the Marlins are like really low strikeout so far this season against lefties. Oakland has strikeout line, also have power, like you said. Nevin, Rooker, even Ruiz, a little bit of power against lefties at the top of the lineup.
Mhm.
Toro has been hitting pretty well. Langeliers, like you said, the 3 home run hero, Shea Langeliers right there. Yeah, I think Weathers, like Sears, is going to be chalky, and Weathers isn't. I don't mind just pivoting to Weathers because they don't project that differently. And if you can play ownership, just try Weathers against Oakland. I don't think it looks that much worse. The stacks, I'm more inclined to play Oakland, but you can make a case for both. There's a bad white split. The righties look good for the A's. So, yeah, I don't love it, but I can see paths to everyone here as well, just like that Minnesota-Boston game.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Yeah, Langoliers with that nice 223 WOBA. That's always nice. And the 28% K rate and 5% walk rate. So he is very much all or nothing, but he's definitely part of what I like as the secondary stack tonight. I like going with Nevin, Rooker, and Langoliers, and then going up with a bigger, more expensive stack, depending on the situation. But it really is one of those situations where it just depends how many lineups you're pushing out, and then you just kind of switch up your usage with Weathers and Sears, and then some of these stacks as like secondary stacks. Because of the park, I'm not super excited to go full 5-man stack on these offenses, but I do like them as some one-offs and for a secondary stack. All right, last game tonight, we got the Braves and the Dodgers in LA. Charlie Morton taking on the Dodgers and Gavin Stone taking on the Braves. Obviously, the Braves and Dodgers are both pretty matchup proof. It's a little bit interesting, though, for Charlie Morton that he's going and facing like the best lefty offense in baseball, and his K rate is 31% against righties, 19% against lefties, 10% walk rate against lefties. So it's like I don't really expect him to give up a bunch of dongs here, but I do anticipate the Dodgers having their way with him. On the other side, Gavin Stone has done well on the year to limit runs, but he does not have an imposing strikeout number. 16% K rate is not something they're afraid of, especially when you're the Braves. And then he's walking lefty hitters at 18% clip. That's gross. So this could be a pretty explosive game. Not interested in the offenses or the pitchers at all, and I'm very interested in both offenses. I'm loving that the Braves went from the number 1 stack to the 3rd. But of the two, I love the Dodgers the most. They're probably my favorite stack of the entire slate. 4.9 projected run total, and they're like in the middle of the pack for ownership.
Yeah, I just prefer the matchup for Atlanta. I just think Morton's better than Stone, obviously, at this stage of their careers. So I'd rather pick on him than Morton. I think Morton at 7.6 is like a large field option just because he's a little underpriced. And you never know. The strikeouts could be there tonight, and there are some strikeouts in that lineup. Muncy, Hernandez, Outman in particular. Lux at the bottom, too. Atlanta looks really good. Acuna, Riley, Olsen, I don't have to run down the names. I think we're all familiar with them at this point. Good mix of pricey and cheap guys like Kelnick should be in the lineup today. Lux for LA, Arcia for Atlanta, Pajes and Outman on the LA side. So if any game's going to be like 14-11, it's this one. So I do have interest in both sides, but if I had to pick one, it would be the Atlanta side.
Yeah, that's where the ownership is going to. So that's why I'm totally with it. I'm not going to tell you not to play the Braves. I like the Braves a lot. But I just think if the Dodgers are going to be significantly less owned, what a hammer game that is to this slate to go with the Dodgers just going off on Charlie Morton. That'd be fun. Okay, real quick, let's wrap things up by looking at the chalky pitchers on the board. You can see it here in the DFS Hero lobby. We got Tanner up top with 28% ownership, Sonny Gray with 26%. We're in agreement that those are good arms to roll with. Who else here is coming in with a significant amount of ownership that you are confident in fading or being very underweight on?
Blanco is not someone I'm going to be getting to at all. I just don't see the need, even in a high strikeout matchup. There are way more viable options in that range, so I don't see the need to look his way.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not really super into Houck because of the park, and I actually kind of like the Twins here. I think the next one would be Paddock. I would definitely go with the Boston side as opposed to Paddock. I know he's cheap, but he has not been good on the year. Okay, as far as ownership goes, as far as guys you are building around, who is your number 1 pitcher and the guy you're going to lock in the most tonight?
Probably Bybee just because he's cheaper than Gray, and the matchup's pretty comparable. Yeah, I like them both quite a bit. Stroman too looks good. Both pitchers in that Oakland Miami game are in play, but Bybee would be the one that stands out the most.
As far as value goes for price, I agree completely. As far as safety and ceiling goes, I would go Sonny Gray. All right, let's look over at the stacks before we wrap this thing up. Let's look at stack ownership. Actually, what I'm going to do real quick is refresh this and see if we can get some updated numbers in case things changed a little bit. It's still only 229 Central, so probably nothing changed. All right, we got Seattle up top at 7.6% for stack percentage. Like you were alluding to, it looks to be pretty split. 4 teams at 7%, and you got a bunch at 6%. So it's going to be pretty even. As far as the teams that look to be somewhat chalky on a slate that doesn't really feel like there's a dominant stack, what's the one that you are going to be going to the most, and which stack would you be underweight or fading on?
The San Diego one would be the one at the top that stands out the most. The one in the middle would be Texas, and the one to be fading would be St. Louis.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I think I would be fading St. Louis, and I would be underweight on Seattle just because they're coming in as the chalk at the moment. You're starting to convince me on the Padres. And obviously, if the Braves are going to be the 4th highest owned stack as perhaps a top 3 offense on this slate, that is pretty interesting too. All right, that is going to do it for us. Hopefully this game-by-game breakdown helps you a little bit in your process. And if it does, please give this video a like and also consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching and good luck.